Welcome back to Bison Overtime. I'm Malik Mitchell.
And I'm Dash Mentzel.
And it's been a while, man. We're back. It's nice to be back in the studio, Dash.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a couple of weeks. There's been a lot going on with NESU sports, and we got a lot to cover today.
Definitely. So we're going to dive into Bison basketball. You know, they ended the season 3 weeks ago, so we're going to do a little quick recap on the Summer League tournament. So the men's came in as the 3rd seed. They had USD for the quarterfinals, and they had to make a lot of clutch shots to edge USD.
Yeah, and, you know, it was a very tight, kind of a nerve-wracking game for the Bison. I mean, personally, the only, they might not have had a chance to win this game if USD didn't make that mistake with 30 seconds ago by throwing the ball out of bounds.
Yeah, but courtesy to Javis Miller, too. Outstanding performance by him.
Clutch three-pointer, clutch layup to take the lead.
Yep, and then they move on to the semifinals for SDSU, which they usually come for business, but they did terrible. I mean, even with the advantage of the arena, they did not show up to play.
I think it was more NDSU just showing up. Yeah. That was probably the best game overall all year that NDSU played. And it was kind of like last year in the semifinals, too, against Oral Roberts. They played their best game in the semifinal game of the tournament.
Yeah, they battled their way back to the championship to face who? Oral Roberts, a team that dominated the whole season, and they got blew out, for lack of a better terms. I mean, losing by 34 points, long story short, they didn't come out, they didn't show up and show out at all.
It's just unfortunate it was too little too late. I mean, they did a lot better in the second half in terms of scoring, but the first half, when you fall behind by 31, especially against a team like Oral Roberts, I mean, we talked about it. You cannot fall behind against this team, and that's exactly what they did. Yeah,
man, it got so quiet in it. I thought it was a scrimmage. It was sad to see the Bison fans, a little that we had, just to experience that. I mean, they had guys that Oral Roberts that didn't perform that whole season and put them in, and they were acting like they were just starters. It was tough to see that matchup.
Yeah, it was quite unfortunate, but overall, a good season for the men's team. I mean, second seed, and considering there were a lot of questions before the season about what was going to happen, so still a great season considering all the circumstances. And 5 straight years in the championship game is definitely an accomplishment.
Yep, looking ahead to next season, they should have most of this team should be returning. Bonus Gunberg, he'll move on to his senior year, score that leader aspect also. Andrew Morgan, I think he showed out. I think he really showed that he made it. He arrived. I believe he was 3rd on the scoring list, so we'll have him down low. Javis Miller and Damari Wheeler-Thomas, that freshman duo, they had a solid year.
To me, it reminds me almost of the duo of Vinny Shahid and Tyson Ward towards the late 2010s.
Yeah, definitely. It might be a stretch because, those two guys will kill us. Those are really good players. They will be definitely in NSU history. And then Grant Nelson, I left him last because there's a lot of speculations whether he's going to go to the NBA, maybe try a shot at that, or maybe he'll transfer to a better school. You never know. And it kind of reminds me of Sam Griesel, that predicament. That, he has another year. Coach Rissman is obviously going to want him to come back, but will he come back? There was kind of a speculation that he got mad at Sam Griesel when he moved, when he transferred to Nebraska. So do you think he'd want him to come back or, try his move his talents elsewhere?
I mean, it was definitely a bummer for the team and for the coach when Griesel left for Nebraska. Yeah. But the reason that Griesel left for Nebraska is to be closer to his hometown. I mean, Nebraska was probably his dream team growing up, so that's why he went back there. But meanwhile, for Grant Nelson, he's from North Dakota, so this is his home state. Yeah. Now, the question is, does he want to possibly improve draft stock by going to a Power 7 or a Power 7 conference? Yeah. Or does he feel like he can just keep doing what he's doing here? Because he's putting up double figures, and double-doubles nonstop. Yeah. So, I mean, does he feel like he can just stay here and keep NBA scouts coming to Fargo?
Yeah, but and there's always that, that factor that, okay, can he do this against, more talented people? Summer League tournament, the Summer League conference is not, the most talented, but can he do that against the Power 7 schools? So we'll see what happens with that. And moving on to the women's, this is tough because I still can't grasp my head around this. You come in as a 2nd seed, you face the 10th seed Kansas City, and you lose in that predicament. I just can't do it. How do you do that? It still doesn't make sense to me. It was tough.
It was tough, but I mean, I think we talked about too, that Kansas City team came in with heart and fire throughout that entire tournament, not just for that game.
Definitely.
But also, I mean, this still can't take away from the great regular season that this women's team had. Probably the best regular season they've had in their Division I era. And, again, like the men, just a lot of questions heading into the season, a lot of new pieces that came in, and you just wondered, what was going to happen. You had freshmen Ella Evans and Abby Graham, transfers like Christine Akafo-Yomain. You didn't really know what were we going to expect from this team. A 2nd seed, and that is just still very impressive.
It makes me think: does this team have bad luck in the postseason? I mean, barring last season, got out in the first round. This season, they they definitely had a turnaround from last season. They had all the pieces. I mean, think about it. You get the freshmen in line, you get the people that's already here, the veterans, and then you get the transfers all come in sync. I know you said they had chemistry problems, but I think they did the best they could in that situation, and they still get out in the first round. It's kind of like this team just has bad luck. I don't think it's coaching because, like you said, all these new pieces, and Coach Jury still had the time and the talent to get these guys together and get them where they were 12-6 in the regular season. I think he did the best he could, and it showed. But to lose like that for the 10th seed, the biggest upset in that tournament by far, it was just tough to watch.
It's unfortunate, but at the same time, there's a lot of players coming back on this team next year. And I talked about that chemistry. They should have a lot more of it by next year. Heaven Hamlin's going to be coming back. That's the big piece. And, Ella Evans and Abby Graham heading into their second years. Abby Draper coming back. A lot of big pieces to this team this year that are coming back again next year.
Emily Banky, who led in rebounds, definitely a person that depended on down low. Humane, that's another person I think that's going to make a bigger emphasis next season. Abby Schulte, she'll be going into her senior year. They got a lot of pieces coming back.
Yeah, the only major starters that are being lost are Emily Banky and Taylor Brown. Otherwise, everybody else is coming back.
Emily Banky's only a junior. I think she's coming back.
No, Emily Banky. Oops. Then it might have been somebody else then that I was thinking of. But
She's
Taylor Brown is the only true starter who is gone for this year.
Yeah, now moving on to Bison baseball. It's been a while since we covered them, so we got to get back to speed. Last time we covered them, they played ASU. That was back in March 1st. They have 4 different matchups since then. So starting with the University of Arizona, they played them March 3rd to March 5th. They got swept. Long story short, 3-game series. First 2 games were close, and in that last game, they just got blown out. Then they moved on to Texas State that next week. 3-game series, lost all of those. Kind of a continuous cycle. That first 2 games, it was close, and in that last game they got blown out. Moved on to University of Texas, 2-game series, lost both of those. It was just tough. Before we get into the recent matchup, Dash, I want to ask you, what do you think this is all about? Why do you think that's having such a shaky start?
Well, I think it's pretty obvious. It's that they've been giving up an average of 9.6 runs per game in this 13-game losing streak, and they need to shore up the defense and pitching because you're not going to be able to win many games when you're giving up, around 10 runs a game. You're not going to find it's not going to be easy to win. I mean, heck, that second game against Texas State, they scored 18 runs and still lost. They gave up 19. I mean, that is just heartbreaking right there to know that you could have the offense to win certain games, but when you give up, however many runs, you're still not going to win.
Yeah, well, this team, you kind of try to find every excuse possible. Like, is being on the road for so long taking a toll on this team, but they're used to it. That's what they do every single year.
Well, exactly. Last year they only had 1 home series, and that was at the very end of the season.
Yeah, so they know what it's like to be on the road, or maybe it's the team. I don't think the team didn't change that much, but I don't know. It's the type of opponents. It's just so much factors that you try to go in favor of this team, but you probably can't.
Well, the conference schedule is definitely going to be different. It's a clean slate because the conference is really what you focus on. But at the same time, the non-conference is, in my opinion, I always say a litmus test for what's going to be coming up in the regular conference season. And this was a pretty poor test so far. I mean, they definitely have to get a lot better in certain aspects, but they still have, time yet before the season is over. But as you mentioned, playing on the road, it looks like, with the weather that we're having up here in Fargo this year, they're going to have to do it again this year. They're going to have to play a lot of road series again this year.
And then finally, this past weekend, they had a 3-game series against Houston Christian, and they finally turned it around. They snapped their 13 losing streak. I mean, finally.
That had to be such a relief right there.
Definitely. On Saturday, they played a doubleheader, and they won both games. They won the first game 10-7. ACU came out knocking in the third, scoring 3 runs. Both teams made some noise in the fourth, and the ASU got the upper hand, though, scoring 6 runs to their 4.
And then I apologize here. Ty Law had an RBI single in the 5th inning to tie the game up at 7, and then the Bison hit 3 runs in the 7th inning to take the 10-7 victory.
Yeah, speaking of Ty Law, he led the Bison with 2 hits, 1 run, and 3 RBIs. Dash, what are some of those stats?
Terrell Huggins had 2 runs, 2 hits, and an RBI.
And then the second game, the Bison took the second win, 6-5. They got after it early. In the first inning, the Bison scored 1 run to ACU's 2, and then the NDSU came back in the 5th, scoring 3 runs and 2 more runs in the 6th and 7th inning.
ACU tried to win the game, though, in the bottom of the 7th after a balk cut the deficit to 1, but they couldn't score again, and the Bison came away with their second win in a row.
Yeah, this time, junior Terrell Huggins led the Bison with 2 hits, 1 run, and 4 RBIs.
Caden Schwabe had 2 runs, 3 hits, and an RBI.
And then on Sunday, this time HCU got the upper hand, beating the Bison 6-5. HCU came out scoring 5 runs in the 3rd, 4th, and 5th inning.
The Bison tried to attempt a comeback by scoring 5 runs in 3 innings. However, ACU got one more run in the bottom of the 8th to break the tie and win the game.
Yep, senior Drew Sackett led the Bison with 3 hits, 1 run, and 2 RBIs.
And then meanwhile, Caden Schwabe had 2 hits and an RBI.
So they are now 3-17 overall. Not what you want, but now they can start getting into tournament play. Finally, they're facing Omaha today at 5:30 p.m. in Nebraska. 3-game series against the Mavericks over this weekend. The Mavericks are 6-8, so hopefully the Bison can, the playing field can be level and they can, start sweeping people, start getting swept.
Yeah, hopefully. I mean, conference play is the big time of the year now into some of the conference play, and a non-conference record of 3-17, nobody wants that, but maybe it'll drive this team to play better in this conference play. And I mentioned the defense, even against Houston Christian, even in the games they won, they gave up 7 and 6 runs in those games. Yeah. So even then, they're still giving up a lot of runs. They got to try to figure out how to either shore up the pitching or change up the defense, because something has to change there.
Yeah, moving on to Bison softball. Like baseball, they've had 3 tournaments since we last covered them. On March 3rd through the 5th, they competed at the Blue City Classic in Memphis. Sorry about that. They went 3-1, which is pretty good. That next week, they had the Gopher Indoor Classic, in which they went 4-1. I mean, pulling off wins against Drake and Idaho State. Hey, this team is going on a roll, kind of the opposite of the baseball team. And it kind of reminds me of, this is a sidetrack, kind of reminds me of Bison basketball, right? The men's team in the beginning were doing horrible, while the women's basketball team were finding success. Kind of reminds me this one.
I mean, hopefully it's the same thing too, where they both find success during conference play as well.
Right? And then last Tuesday and Wednesday, they had 2 games in Starkville, Mississippi, and they beat Mississippi State 2-0, but lost to Purdue 2-1. And then this last week, they competed at the Revel Invitational in Oxford, Mississippi, and went 2-0. On Thursday, they got the payback, beating Purdue 4-0. The Bison just had control over that game. They scored 2 runs in the first inning and 2 more runs in the 4th and 5th.
And they've won 10 of their last 12 games. And the only 2 losses in those last 12 games were to 2 Big Ten teams in Purdue and Minnesota. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, they're beating all the teams that they should be beating, which is a great sign.
This team is on a roll. Then on Saturday, they dominated Sanford 7-1. I mean, they scored all 7 runs in the first 4 innings. So this team is a force to be reckoned with.
Put it away nice and early. And, I mean, they didn't get any more runs after those 7, but also they only held Sanford to 1 run. That was in the 5th inning. So, I mean, defensively, a great game as well.
Yep, senior Carly Cochillas led the Bison with 3 hits, 2 runs, and 3 RBIs.
Meanwhile, Belladine had 1 run, 2 hits, and 2 RBIs.
So they are now 16-11 overall. They will also start tournament play this weekend. They'll play a 3-game series against Kansas City. The rules aren't doing so hot. They've only won 5 games so far.
Yeah, and currently they're on an 8-game losing streak. It just lost 2 games in a row in 5 innings. But granted, those 2 games were against 2 Big 12 teams in Nebraska and Kansas. But, I mean, either way, 5-21 start of the year. Definitely not the best start for them. And hopefully NDSU can start off conference play on the right track.
Definitely. Just like the baseball, they'll be away for most of the season, but hopefully they can, hopefully the road doesn't hinder them like the baseball team has been going through.
Yeah, and the thing is, it's like last year, softball was able to have more home series because thankfully the snow had melted off of their field, so they were able to play. I don't think they're going to get that same luxury this time around. They have a series that's coming up at home on April 7th. I don't know if they're going to get to play that one at home because their next one won't be until the very end of the season at the beginning of May, so... Yeah, they're going to probably have a long stretch here on the road coming up.
Yeah, it just sucks to play baseball in Fargo. I mean, especially this year, it keeps on storming. We just can't catch a break.
No, and the floods are going to be bad too once the snow melts as well.
Oh my God! So hopefully they can, hopefully it could be a miracle and this weather can change around because I want to see some baseball. It sucks that the semester ends before we can even catch them. Maybe we'll catch like 1 or 2 tournaments, but other than that, the rest of the season we're back at the crib. But hopefully this baseball team could turn their season around, and hopefully softball can continue what they've been doing. But we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll dive into Bison track and field, women's golf, wrestling, and some NFL news. Stay tuned.
There are so many great things to experience at NDSU. It's hard to pick one, but my favorite is...
the people. They make it such a warm place. The Bison aren't just across the country, they're across the globe.
It's the perfect distance from home. The faculty are our biggest cheerleaders. Hands-on research experience. The affordable tuition.
All the opportunities to stay active on campus.
Real-world learning experiences.
Once I got on campus, it felt like home.
My name is Addie Stewart, and I graduated from NDSU in the Department of Communication in 2018. My degree was in strategic communication, and I'm the communications specialist for the city of West Fargo. That includes social media, press releases, breaking news, interviews, media relations, and more. I went into communication because I wanted to do something I was passionate about. There were so many opportunities. I knew I could work for nonprofits, government, small business, agency work. Professors in the department definitely impacted me a lot in my life, making sure that once I graduated college, I knew I could get a job here just because of the connections in the department and the great morale that was in Fargo. Future students should definitely come to NDSU because it's a degree like no other here.
The NDSU bookstore has everything you need to show off your Bison pride. The bookstore can have you sporting green and gold wherever you go. It offers many different brands, sizes, styles, and selection so that you find exactly what you're looking for. Shop the NDSU bookstore and show your spirit today.
And we're back. We're going to dive into Bison track and field. Both teams competed at the USF Invitational in Tampa, Florida. And for the men's, they got a couple of first-place finishes, so they did pretty good. Diving into that, Benji Phillips won the javelin throw with a throw of 71.82 meters. Jacob Rodin won the 800-meter with a time of 1 minute and 48 seconds. Josh Knudsen won the 400-meter hurdles with a time of 42 seconds. And Peyton Smith won the 200-meter steeplechase with a time of 5 minutes and 49 seconds. Dash, how did the women's do?
Meanwhile, for the women, Haley Schmidt threw a personal best 45.14 meters to win the javelin and ranked 8th all-time at NDSU. Kendra Kelly clocked a personal best of 23.84 seconds in the 200-meter dash, moving up to 4th fastest in NDSU outdoor history. Teresa Bollebrook clocked a career best 13.66 seconds in the 100-meter hurdles, ranking her 3rd in school history. And Reagan Basler ran a personal best of 4 minutes and 28 seconds in the 1500-meter to rank 9th all-time at NDSU. The track and field teams will be traveling to California on Thursday to compete in the Mike Finelli Track Classic in San Francisco and the Stanford Invitational in Stanford. And then meanwhile, the women's golf team has finished in the top 5 in both of their first 2 matches in the spring. Unfortunately, things were way different this past weekend at the Red Rocks Invitational in Sedona, Arizona. Let's just say that at the Red Rocks Invitational, it was a little rocky. The team finished 18th out of 20 teams. And the team's best finishers were Elise Hoven and Catherine Monty, who finished tied for 50th with scores of 229. And Maddie Hicks finished tied for 58th place with a score of 232. NDSU will be back in action next Monday at the Golf Week, Any Given Tuesday Intercollegiate in Pawleys Island, South Carolina.
You know, just to talk about this team for a little bit, the last tournament they finished 4th, which isn't bad out of 16 teams. You know, I feel like this team is just consistent. That's their problem. You know, beginning of the season, I think they went 1, 2, 3, first place, second place, and third, and then they dropped down. Then you got the 17 places, and now look like they're back on track with the 18th place. This team just looks like they just need to find consistency, or it's just the type of opponents that they're facing.
I mean, that was a pattern in the fall, though. You're right. I mean, they would have these matches where they even won a couple of matches back in the fall, and then they'd have these random ones where they finished like 12th and 10th and 19th, and it seemed like it just turned all of a sudden out of nowhere. It's not like a gradual, in between, okay, they get like a 7th or an 8th. It was just like either first or way towards the back. And this is kind of what it was again this time around. So I don't know what it is. I don't know, how it works as much with golf, in terms of competition and the teams you're facing. I think that's just more of an individual-based sport and how well, you play. And sometimes as a whole, your team everybody just doesn't have it.
And I'd say it seems like it's been a reoccurring, instance with this team, for the past couple of years. Hopefully they can turn around and become a dominant golf team than a team that's, as consistent like this. But moving on to Bison Wrestling. The Bison Wrestling team finished their regular season with an impressive 11-3 record. So they did pretty good this past weekend. They competed at the NCAA Championships in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Left with some nice accolades. Dash, give it to me.
Exactly. Jared Franek and Michael Caliendo earned All-American honors this year at the NCAA tournament. Franek finished 4th in his 157-pound weight class after winning 5 matches, and Michael Caliendo finished 7th in his 165-pound weight class after winning 5 matches as well. So, just to cap off a great season for this wrestling team, to have 2 guys finished as All-Americans.
Definitely. Now we got a chance for, the best segment on this show, I would say, NFL news. And, we got
it been since we talked about NFL? Not since the Super Bowl, I don't think.
Not since a while, but, we got to start off right just because of that. And that's the Cowboys, not the Packers, the Cowboys. How about the boys? We've been making some movements in the offseason. I mean, hey, franchise tags, Tony Pollard. That's good. He's coming off a broken fibula, but he had an outstanding season this past season.
He's had an outstanding career, let's be honest with that.
Give it to me. You could give all the Cowboys. Give it to us. I'm glad to have him. Only problem I have with him, Zeke, I'll get to him later, but he was one of those guys. He can give us 20 carries or more. The only problem is, can Pollard do that and stay healthy? That's one of the things. We know all that. We know he's explosive. We know he can give you touchdowns and yards, but can he stay healthy while getting a lot of carries? That's the only thing with him.
I personally think he can. I mean, I've been saying for a couple of years now, I think Pollard should be the featured back of this team. The only reason he wasn't is because Jerry Jones gave that massive contract to Ezekiel Elliott.
I think the whole world was thinking that. But now Zeke has been cut, just like everybody was preaching. Even I was preaching that. But we love you, Zeke. We appreciate all the things you've done for the Cowboy Nation.
Letting Zeke feast for all those years.
Definitely. But they have acquired Ronald Jones from the Kansas City Chiefs. A good running back, I'd say.
Yep. Part of that Super Bowl 55 team in Tampa Bay.
Yep. And then we got a receiver. What I've been waiting for, because CD can't do it by himself. Brandon Cooks from the Texans. He'll be a great compliment to CD Lamb and Gallup. We lost Noah Brown and Dalton Schultz, so we definitely need some
both
deeper
of them
receiver
went to Houston.
room. Yeah, I know. So it's been tough. Then we got cornerback Stephon Gilmore. We're talking about a franchise cornerback. He's getting up there in age, but he's still that guy that can do it to you. We got Trevon Diggs. He's unpredictable. He jumps on so many balls. He's either going to pick it or he's going to get beat. And I'm tired of seeing that. So we got to get these corners, some legendary corners, future legendary corners. I don't want to put that on them right now. But Stephon Gilmore is definitely that guy. I'm glad that we got him. And then we got an offensive tackle, Chuma Odega. I'm sorry. I'm terrible with names. But it's good that we acquired him. We lost one of our tackles.
McGovern, yep.
Right, so we needed that to fill that spot. So the Cowboys have been making movements this offseason, and I can't wait for this next season.
Another movement as well for you guys. You also re-signed Leighton Vander Esch to an extended contract. And then meanwhile, for my team, the Green Bay Packers, a little bit quieter than the Dallas Cowboys, which I mean, to be honest, that's normal for us, though. We never do anything in free agency in March. But we did make a couple of small moves. We re-signed key guys to the special teams unit, like Rudy Ford, Corey Ballantyne, Justin Hollins. And the big one for me was Kayshawn Nixon. To see how he returned kicks at the end of last season, was the league's leading guy in return yards. So happy to have him back. We definitely need him for that. Also signed Tarvarius Moore from the San Francisco 49ers as a special teams player and a backup safety as well. And meanwhile, right now, the big news with Green Bay, though, is Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
He came out last week on the Pat McAfee show and said that he intends to play for the New York Jets. And, now it's pretty much down to the teams. Rodgers says he's going to the Jets. Now, what are the teams going to do? The Packers and Jets are in talk trades right now.
Yeah, it's been a lot. When are you guys going to lock that deal? I think that's the speculations that's been going on.
Well, the question is right now, who has the advantage in this trade? Because there's a lot of people saying the Packers have the advantage. There's a lot of people saying the Jets have the advantage. Who really does? Personally, I think it could be either or. The Jets kind of have an advantage right now because they're like, the Packers are desperate to get rid of Rodgers. They'll do anything to do it. Meanwhile, the Packers at the same time are like, the Jets could be desperate to get Aaron Rodgers because who's their backup option right now? They don't have one.
That's true.
So they have to get Aaron Rodgers. And meanwhile, I think the Jets have been making moves to make this work. They just traded away Elijah Brown to the Cleveland Browns, or Elijah Moore, excuse me, to the Cleveland Browns to get a second-round pick. And now the New York Jets have the 42nd and the 43rd overall pick in the second round, and there could be chances that they could trade both of those to Green Bay. But I think Green Bay wants that first-round pick, which is the 13th overall pick for Rodgers.
Yep. I don't know what you guys are going to do. And Aaron Rodgers, I think he'll be a nice piece on the Jets. I would love to see that matchup. I mean, especially with the defensive aspect. You got Sauce Gardner and all those boys. I want to see what happens.
They got Alan Lazard, too, now on the offense. Yeah. They got Breece Hall when he gets back from injury. If he gets back from injury, he'll be dangerous.
Yep. And then another topic I want to touch on is Lamar Jackson. I feel like he's been, the talk of the town and just been in every news story for the last couple of weeks. His contract situation. He doesn't want to play for the Baltimore Ravens anymore. He's put that out there.
They gave him the franchise tag, first off.
Yeah, they gave him the franchise tag.
But he's not playing on that. We know that.
We know that. So what we've heard is that he's seeking a $230 million contract and guaranteed money, U.S. dollars.
Which is the same contract that Deshaun Watson got from Cleveland.
Right. So when you start comparing these guys, and I know you said Deshaun Watson kind of screwed up the market, screwed up the game.
Well, the Browns screwed up the market, in my opinion. They're the ones who gave Watson that contract.
Right. Now, Lamar Jackson, in his head, he could be thinking, well, you give this guy a contract when I'm better than him, I have more accolades than him, and I can give you more, and my character overall, I don't get in trouble, I keep my nose clean.
He's got one more MVP, and he hasn't had any of the troubles that Watson has had.
Exactly. So when you look at that, and then it's kind of a slap in the face that no team is giving him an offer because of that. And then it's kind of like they're blackballing him, in my opinion, because when no team's offering is, okay, another NFL team or several NFL teams will be like, okay, why is nobody touching this guy? Could it be something else? Could it be deeper? Can it be, I don't know. I think they're blackballing him. And plus, when, he doesn't want to deal with the Baltimore Ravens anymore. So now he's going to make him look even worse. And then we got to get into his representation, right? They're talking about he has no agent. And he has someone that's doing the talking for him. But he has tweeted that has been a lie. So it's just a lot of back and forth, he say, she say, that you don't know. And I'm sad that it's making him look bad more than it's taking away from the real problem that why does anybody want this franchise quarterback? It makes no sense. There's teams that need quarterbacks, and to not even be interested or indulge in that is just a slap in the face to him, I think.
The problem is right now, it's that I don't think the problem is that no teams want him. I think there are teams out there that absolutely want him. The problem is if the rumor that the $230 million asking price he wants is true, there are no teams that need quarterbacks right now that can even pay that right now. Mm-hmm. If they're going to look for a quarterback, they might as well say, okay, well, we're just going to get somebody in the draft that's way less money than what he wants. And the other thing that's the big red flag with Lamar right now is just the injuries. The last 2 years, he's missed significant time. Last year, especially with that knee injury to end the year, unfortunately. And it's just a little scary. It's a little nerve-wracking.
I genuinely don't think that's a problem, though. I don't think teams are looking at that right now. I don't think that's the main issue. I think you could get over that with that. I don't think that's the main, focus of teams as injuries. It's Lamar Jackson. Come on now. He can. I think he can overcome that. And plus, he's still young. And plus, like the knee injury, he's a running quarterback. That's just going to happen. That's just the nature of the game, right?
Yes.
And I don't think that's a career-ending injury or something that would, take away from the years. Next years he has, as far as a deal, I don't think that would be an issue.
I'm not saying that it's like a career or anything. Yeah. It's just that there's certain, GMs out there who don't want to risk that because it's the upside is really good here. We could have an amazing quarterback. But say if something devastating happens, he gets the same injury or something happens like that, and all of a sudden he's just, its mobility is completely shot. Mm-hmm. And it's just then, was it really worth doing this? That's just the worry that a lot of people have. But I'm sure there's somebody that will eventually sign him. There's no way that he goes into the season as just a guy who's going to sit on the Ravens, not even playing on the franchise.
I don't know. I just don't like the rumors that just because him not having an agent makes him look like an outsider, an outlier. There's been plenty of players that didn't have an agent that constructed a deal and just moved on in their career. But since it's him, and I think the type of money that he's asking for, I think it's okay, whoa, time out. What are you doing here? But we'll see what happens. Do you think he'll get so you think he'll sit out? If he doesn't get an offer?
Well, if he doesn't get an offer, yes. I think he's just going to sit on the, he'll have to sit on the Ravens bench, unfortunately, because the Ravens aren't going to, trade him or anything. So, I don't, it's kind of it's a sucky situation. It's definitely one that's sort of unprecedented right now, because I don't know if I've seen, the Deshaun Watson case was kind of similar to this a couple of years ago, in which they were but the problem was he wasn't asking for a lot. The Texans were asking for a lot for him in a trade. That was the big problem there. So, it was just a little bit different. But, yeah. And personally, I think if that contract hadn't been signed from the Browns to Deshaun Watson, I think this whole situation would be a lot smoother. But now, because of all that guaranteed money that Watson got, and Lamar, looks at that and says, hey, I've done a lot more than him. Why am I not getting paid more than him? I deserve that money. And, he's right. But, who can pay that kind of contract right now? There's not a lot of teams that can.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, it just looks like it's just a slap in the face to Lamar, I think. This is a guy, arguably top 4 quarterbacks in the league. And for him to be going through this issue, teams will give him an offer, and there's teams out there that need a quarterback and that should love to have him on his team. It's just it bamboozles me, for lack of better words. I just can't grasp my head around it. It makes no sense. But yeah, I agree with you. I think if he doesn't get an offer, I think he's definitely going to sit out, and I think he should sit out. I don't think he should play under that. But we'll see what happens, man. I don't know. It's a sticky situation, and it's been a long time since then too. And I hate it because the more it carries out, the more speculations, the more rumors, the more everything. And it seems like he tries to clear his name on Twitter, but it kind of goes left. So
and we're also getting speaking of all the free agency news and all that, we're also getting closer to the draft. We are only 1 month away now from the NFL draft, and there's already been moves considering that the Panthers have traded up with the Bears on the number 1 overall pick to probably get either Bryce Young or C.J. Stroud. So it's just the draft is going to be bonkers this year considering last year how many trades there were in the first round. I think there's going to be even more this year.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. I don't know. Last year, the draft was pretty good, so that's a big statement, but we'll see what happens. But thank you for tuning in to Bison Overtime. I'm Malik Mentzel.
And I'm Mentzel.
And we'll catch you guys next week. Stay tuned. Go Bison.